Welcome everybody to Voiro's webinar on retail media. This has been a very storied topic in the Western countries. We keep reading about how much Amazon is doing with retail media advertising. We'll read about retail media networks. There's a lot that's going on in this space, and India is catching up to that particular story. I recently read an article about how the ad dollars in India are about 8 billion, out of which retail media is really pushing the bar, moving up to about 25%. So the whole webinar today is to deconstruct some of the operational stuff that happens behind the scenes in these organizations, for us to also make sure that we are able to ask questions, because it is one of those places where we are huge consumers of it, but we don't understand the deep workings of it. Before we get there, I'd like to introduce our panelists today. We have Anurodh from Swiggy, who is Director Monetization. We have Kishore from BigBasket, who's the Head of Brand Intelligence at BigBasket. And we have Anand from Voiro, who is COO and co-founder, and he currently leads product strategy over here. Anand is the consumer's voice, if anybody wants to know what Anand is doing on this panel. And Swiggy and BigBasket are deeply entrenched in our lives. And I'm very, very excited to have both of you to talk about retail media, because you all have such deep, insightful associations to these brands and platforms. But we are going to be talking about the marketplace and e-commerce as a whole. So welcome, everybody, and welcome to our panelists.
Thank you, Kavita, for the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita.
You're most welcome. Okay, so my first question to everybody, and like I was telling you just before we started, this is this entire conversation is meant to make sure that we are able to explore and share between organizations and between viewpoints. Everybody listening in today, as well as all of us on this panel and in this webinar, are really loyal customers to several retail platforms. I'm pretty sure both Swiggy and BigBasket, as representatives of these companies, you've used each other's platforms as well in your day-to-day. I wanted to know, as of today, right, there's been a huge growth and there has been a huge change of consumer behavior. What does it take today to stay competitive as an e-commerce platform while still maximizing profitability in this space? Because a lot of times there was this a bid for growth at the behest of profitability or at all costs, but there is now the flavor of profitability is coming back into our lives. Do you have a take on it? How do you stay competitive while maximizing profitability? We can start from you, Kishore.
Yeah, Kavita. So e-commerce, as you had mentioned, it's an evolving sector over the last decade, extremely competitive. And there are various things that a retailer can do to maximize profitability. Few things, right? Say one of them being even getting the UI UX right, having a clean, intuitive, responsive website matters, having a simplified checkout process, having a mobile-friendly app web designs, minimal load times. These are all smaller things that has got to do with user experience that matters a lot, which helps you stay competitive and also maximize profitability. Along with this, providing exceptional customer experience, customer service through operational efficiencies, say driving multiple channels, providing multiple delivery options, and having the right assortment mix to drive higher consumption to consumers will also help in the path towards profitability, right? Exceptional customer service, even in terms of easy return policies, all of this matter. One other aspect is the private label brands that you can build. This will offer value to consumers. It still offers you margin as a retailer and helps you stay competitive by offering value. And with higher margins, it helps with profitability, also maximizing profitability. Similarly, retailers could look at leveraging data analytics well, right? We sit on much richer granular data. We can mine this better, understand consumer behavior, understand their preferences, reach them out through personalization, targeting strategies, and help generate trials and conversion. Right? Similarly, having a robust inventory management system matters a lot. Ensuring minimal stockouts, not having overstock, or not overstocking also matters a lot in terms of not impacting profitability, right? Overstocks have a negative impact on profitability. Getting it right ensures great customer satisfaction in the highly competitive space and also helps with profitability. Similarly, uh, going on with various AI tools, which is the trend recently. I think we should also explore those options to increase productivity, efficiencies, and work towards profitability. Yeah, these are the few thoughts that I had.
Yeah. Anurodh, from Kishore's point of view, BigBasket is, they manage supply as well, right? From what when you manage the stock and the SKU as well, correct? Kishore, is that something that you all do?
And all Swiggy products on BigBasket are the entire inventory is managed by us.
Managed by your. Is it different with Swiggy? Is it are your businesses different in that manner? Is where Swiggy is driving discovery and transaction to a restaurant, and the supply is not with y'all?
So if you talk about food marketplace, right? It is like that. We do have some private labels, but majority still the restaurants who are not owned by us, right? So which means we don't own the supply as such. But Instamart could be a little different, right? So Instamart will have a different model, and they may want to stock things in their own. Probably they don't own the FMCG brands yet, but they still buy the inventory first and then sell it. But it's for the food marketplace, it's like a real-time delivery, which is more important. Prepared by a restaurant, order placed by a customer, delivered by Swiggy.
Right. And how do you stay competitive in this space, right? What do you guys do from a Swiggy's perspective, from a restaurant perspective?
Right. So from a restaurant perspective or from Swiggy's perspective, because the answer could be a little different in both.
From Swiggy's, let's start from Swiggy's perspective.
Right. So one thing you mentioned, the balance between growth and profitability. So if I think about times around 2020, a lot of startups at that point in time were talking about growth first, right? But I think I've sensed the wave has changed in the recent times. I see a lot of brands talking about both at the same time. It's not like I'll be scaling up first and then think about profitability, but I've seen a lot of changes in a lot of models which talk about profitability from the very first day while they are scaling up, right? So that's the one change that I've seen. Now, when we talk about the various options that any e-commerce platform, including Swiggy, has, is either we generate money or revenue from the vendors or the restaurants who are listed on the platform, right? Or the consumers who are buying from us, or we have the third option of getting the money from the ads revenue, right? So the retail media that actually is booming, and that's how you started the conversion as well, is a big lever, because if you talk about increasing the money or the revenue that I extract from the consumers, that would have a direct impact on the conversion, right? If I increase Delphi, for example, on Swiggy, I would see an impact directly, right? Similarly, if I try to extract more on the commissions front, that would also have a lot of repercussions. Plus, I also have to think about the restaurant industry as a whole, right?
Yeah.
We all have limited margins, and I can just keep extracting that uniformly, right? So what levers the third platform or the pillar gives us is the ability to differentiate between a person who is the potential to pay more, wants to grow at a faster rate, and also can give restaurants tools to have a plan of their own. I'm not monetizing everyone. I'm not making it mandatory for everyone, which means if a restaurant is on a nascent stage, I know his needs are to get visibility at a faster rate, so he will want to invest on ads. Similarly, if there is a restaurant who actually has a lot of money and wants to ensure that their recall is always at the top, they will also want to invest on, say, performance marketing, right? So this particular lever, one, is flexible, right? I don't impact customer experience because of this by a lot, because I have a lot of tools to manage it, control it, right? At the same time, I'm giving restaurants an option of choosing between what they want to do, right? So this is what I think is the framework on which we think and grow along with being scalable.
Interesting. Anand, having listened to what Swiggy does and what BigBasket, is all about in terms of managing supply, and Swiggy talks about the restaurant. As a consumer, how do you choose between platforms of choice? I mean, obviously there are different types of online grocers and different restaurants. What drives you to make choices between where you go?
Yeah, I think what I found as a common thread between what Anurodh and Kishore just talked about is even across all three modes of monetization, including and especially ads, right? Kishore, I think, started off with this in his response, which is that user experience is paramount. What I found is, unlike other areas of ad tech, whether it is OTT or publishing or news or any of the other ad realms, the thing about retail or marketplaces is that there is an element of loyalty and user experience that I think is paramount. It's probably the only space where advertisers, merchants, platform, everybody is running towards one metric, which is we have to drive the funnel and drive transactions. As a consumer, what I found is that this is an industry where loyalty cuts very differently and is also very core to our identity, right? I know people who are very, very clearly Uber users and not Ola users, or the other way. I know people who are exclusively Swiggy users, meaning they will not even have the Zomato app on their phone, right? Similarly with BigBasket, when you're in my building, in my apartment, you know who is a BigBasket user, who's an Instamart user, who's a Zepto user, and it's one of those things where loyalty is actually something that drives behavior to an extent where you're not really floating around, which is very different. When it comes to content, for example, I don't really care. Wherever the movie is, I'll go and watch it. Doesn't matter which app it's on. And between me and all the password sharing we have across my family, we have access to every possible app. Whereas in the world of retail, I think it's a far more intimate relationship, which is why user experience is so paramount. I doubt that either Swiggy or BigBasket will toss too many interstitials in my face and start shoving ads in my experience, because I'll walk away from the application. But my identity is very tied to the app. I don't have competitor apps on my phone. So I think that loyalty cuts very differently from a consumer standpoint and is much closer to the identity, which is why both Anurodh and Kishore were talking about the fact that user experience cannot be messed with at all.
Yeah, the whole do no harm tenement, right? Where you're saying that you do no harm to users, do no harm to sellers, and which is what even Anurodh, you touched upon, saying that I can't keep dipping into the same margins from a seller perspective as well. And
one thing is, I remember the early days of the first COVID lockdown, where I'm sure everyone here recollects a 90-day stretch where no store was open, there was no delivery, there was nothing. In fact, we were rationing all the rice in my kitchen at one point. The day things opened up a little bit and the BigBasket delivery person came to my house, I was so grateful. I thanked that person. I tweeted and said, this guy has saved my life. But remember, that's the relationship that we have with the platform, right? Which is very, very unique to this industry.
Yeah. I don't think it's go ahead.
Just to add in to the point that Anand mentioned about COVID, right? There were a lot of them who appreciated one call that was taken, which we were privy to, because when there were a lot of orders coming in and a lot of new customers coming into e-commerce at that point of time when there was shutdown, our management team took a call that let's focus on our existing customers. Let's even block new customers coming in, because we have to serve them. They've been with us for long, because we didn't have the capacity in terms of manpower. Overnight, after the Prime Minister announced lockdown, overnight our manpower became 10% of the previous day, right? So all capacity planning went in
right out.
So the call that was taken within a week was, hey, let's serve our existing customers better first. They've been with us for long. Let's fulfill their order. Over there also, we came up with control saying that let's restrict the quantities that one could place orders for, because most of them should be serviced, right? I think those are some interesting calls that were taken, and even though we could have had a lot of new customers coming in, I think that speaks a lot about the value system. Even at a time when some could have capitalized in a capitalistic economy like us, right? I think
true.
It's one great move that is taken.
True. And speaking of like capitalizing at the, at all costs, Anurodh, when we were chatting the other day, you were talking about how, and also even right now, you said not everybody's allowed to advertise, right? Not all restaurants are allowed to advertise. Like, you want to just color within the lines on that. So if I'm a restaurant, I just want to throw money at it, like if I was a well-funded new cloud kitchen. Is that something that I can do? I can just throw money at it and just appear on top of the scroll at Swiggy?
Not really.
Okay.
The way we are thinking about it is not just monetization, but also customer experience, like we discussed, right? So we have a very strong data science relevance logic, which sort of decides who's to be shown. Everyone can buy ads, but it's not like everyone will be shown ads in the same position. Also, it depends on the restaurants. It would not make sense. But even if I keep that aside and someone wants to do that and bypass all the logic, there are strict checks and balances in place, which will make sure that my customer experience is not getting hampered. And anything that we do goes through a rigorous experiment where we have strong metrics around my customer experience.
So yeah, so Anand and Kavita, a couple of points over here also at BigBasket, like Anurodh was talking about, we let certain personalized banners that are there on the platform, right? So these banners or display assets are shown to the relevant audience. Even if brands want to take up and spend as much money as they would want to, based on the banner performance in terms of clicks and conversions, the algorithm decides which one should be shown, which one is getting the best possible response from the consumers, right? So that plays a vital role. It's so easy for any brand or any e-com player wanting to push someone's products, but we let the consumer decide, right? I think that's what Anurodh also.
Yeah, that's what Anurodh also was saying. Yeah, because a lot of times restaurant ratings and the fact that restaurant listings, etc., are based on what consumers think about it. And where your place, it's so hyper local. So it makes sense for them to be very sensitive about how they allow advertising, or at least promotions. It's not called advertising here, it's just promotions and merchandising, to be able to sort of get to the consumer to say, hey, here's the best biryani place near your house. And it could be a promoted a spot, right? I think the concept of do no harm is huge. Do no harm to user experience, do no harm to sellers, and then everything will follow. And the growth at all costs, right, is not something that you can take as a given within organizations like yours, because you're so intimately entwined in people's day-to-day lives. Delivery of groceries, I'm hungry and you're giving me my food, and that's probably the most vulnerable time for most people, right? You want to make sure that you're getting good food and on time. Similarly with groceries. So the example that you gave us about how you decided to focus on your new users instead of capitalizing on this boom during COVID, I'm sure happens in micro ways on daily basis, where you're making these choices for consumers and for consumers who are already with you instead of a bid to grow at all costs. So I think it takes a lot to stay competitive today, and maximizing profitability is a day-to-day thing. It's not a one-time fix. And also staying competitive is a constant, steady jog along while not giving up certain values that the organization stands for. So thank you, both of you, for your answers. I'm going to go to the next question, which is a segue from here, from a seller perspective, right? And we are on the precipice of the Amazon Big Prime Day, and everybody's kind of gearing up for it. There has been so much advertising from Amazon from it. Like every time I put on my TV now and put on Amazon Prime, there's a QR code that comes up and says 15th and 16th. So I'm getting major FOMO to actually shop. Like they're forcing me to want to shop. I don't need anything, but I'm like, am I missing out on something, right? So but every e-commerce platform does something as a tentpole event for their sellers to be able to drive discovery from on over the year. But on a day-to-day basis also, each of these sellers can do stuff to be able to drive discovery of their product and services. So just for the sake of people who may not be familiar with how retail media internally is set up for sellers by the company and ads, right? So from seller side advertising, merchandising, and advertising, how is BigBasket set up internally so that you're able to drive discovery of product and services to a consumer? Like, what are the various things that are done?
Various things that BigBasket does when it comes to ensuring is the consumer experience is that we try and understand the consumer journey. How do they come into the platform? Once they land on the platform, what is the mix of consumer versus search versus browse, right? Search versus navigation that happens on the platform. So we will have to look at that first, right? basically in terms of if people are primarily shopping through search vis-a-vis navigation, the assets on the platform, the retail media platform should factor in that requirement. Now, once they land on the platform, within search, what are all the various options can I give them? To be search a sponsored product wherein they directly add a product to the cart. Could it be a sponsored banner, an ad, which is again a lot of retail players have it. Other than these kind of search, similarly on navigation, what are all the various ways which I could capitalize on? Say, we would look at the way consumers transact in a modern trade store. How will they do? Once they come in, they have various floor displays, a gondola end cap display, and they are shopping, they have shelf branding, and at the end they have a checkout, right? Where impulse is placed. So we follow the similar journey on our platform. At checkout, you will have certain products which are basically impulse products, reminder products that would add value to a customer, and then place an ad over there, a product over there. Similarly, consumer is searching, not just search term product, search term sponsored ad, search term banner is something that will definitely add value. Primarily, on top of this, we try and understand, we try and marry all three needs, right? From the consumer's point of view, from our point of view, and from the brand's point of view. Brand has a new launch. How do we build in awareness? Brand has an established brand. How do we get the attention of the customer? So in the case of new launches, having an ad, like a video ad, gets the attention of the customer. At the same time, it should not be too distracting that the consumer spends a lot of time there and forgets what he has come for, right? As I mentioned earlier also, in terms of ads, though we look at monetizing it, doesn't mean we compromise the consumer journey. For example, there were a lot of manufacturers who have come to us, who are non-endemic brands, who have come to us and had asked us to say that we want to place our ads over here because BigBasket consumer base is all SCCA, they're relevant for us. We have said no to them. It could be phone company to insurance company. During the consumer journey, we would not want to distract our customers, nor would we want them to land somewhere else. We are fine maybe after checkout, after thank you, wherein we could lead them out, right? So I think we factor in consumer behavior on our platform, their preferences, objectives of the brands, and our own objectives to try and place the assets at the right places, ad formats, whether should it be a static image, should be carousel, should it be a universal ad, should it be a targeted ad to a relevant cohort. All of this is factored when we're trying to come up with ads on the platform.
Nice.
Kishore, if I could ask you a question in terms of that funnel and not distracting from the actual transaction, how do you balance taking me through the funnel quicker versus giving me a chance to discover a new product? I would imagine in a physical store, if I were a new brand, it would be very hard for me to compete with the Procter & Gamble's, who have probably paid like hundreds of millions of dollars to occupy the most premium shelf space. So I'll be stuck somewhere at the back, or I'll have to, I don't know, do something in the parking lot maybe.
Absolutely.
But in terms of being able to discover that, both in terms of new restaurants, Anurodh, as well as new brands, how do you find that balance between allowing me to discover something new versus catering to the things I buy 90% of the time?
Yeah. So, Anand, let's take the case of new launches, right? As in the case of a modern trade store, like they have the flexibility, new brand also can spend monies to place themselves on a gondola and cap. Over here, if you look at a typical algorithm of any of these platforms, if you look at it organically, the fastest moving products are shown and the descending order, right? In the descending order. So obviously the fastest moving product in the case of levers, Dove soap will be showing up right on the top, and new startup soap might not show right on the top at all. So what happens there? There we provide various options, right? One is a banner that could be taken right on the homepage for a brand. Even though it's an emerging brand, they can take it up. If they can't spend so much on a homepage banner, which is a prime property, can we give them any other banner on the homepage, which is targeted to a relevant cohort, which is much more, which will help them optimize their spends? Third is a sponsored product, right? Organically, your product is not showing up. Can you take up a sponsored product ad through the self-serve ads engine at a minimum CPC. If someone else is competing, you take it up at a higher CPC. We still provide you a chance to come right on the top. So various options that are there for a brand to still show up on the platform and make themselves discoverable, even though they're competing with many other brands. Now, one other point. So a new brand has come up, they want to reach out. We can help them identify a cohort on the platform based on the shopping behavior and reach out to that cohort with a push notification with this brand ad, right? So I think that's another way to create awareness, build recall over a period of time, and give an exclusive offer only to those cohorts.
Anurodh, Kishore kept talking about modern trade, and I feel like there is, and that's my next question that I'll ask you guys later. But in Swiggy, how do y'all look at discovery versus advertising, promotion, and stuff like that? What is the divide between that?
Sure. So I'll take two perspectives for this. One from a restaurant point of view and one from a consumer point of view, right?
Okay.
So if we talk about restaurants first, each restaurant could have a very different need. In fact, within the restaurant journey, there could be some sub branches, sub menu items that they launch, and hence the needs could vary depending on what time the restaurant is in, right? It could be they're a very nascent stage. It's a new restaurant, no one knows him. Like Anand said, he'll have to either start from parking lot or he'll not get the visibility anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Second could be a growth phase. He's started the journey well. He now needs to go on the growth trajectory, but he still is not in the awareness set of a lot of consumers. So that still remains as a need. Once that awareness set is captured, right, then you start thinking about how do I go into the consideration set and then the conversion later, right? So depending on which stage of this growth journey you are in, you will have a different solution from Swiggy, right? So if a restaurant comes to us saying that I'm new, no one knows me, help me, there are specific inventory points on the platform. Like on the homepage, you'll have a dedicated slot only given to restaurants who are new as a proposition. When I say new, I'm not limiting it to be new as a restaurant in general. It could be, say, Domino's is opening up a outlet which makes it serviceable to me now. Domino's I know, right? But I didn't know that Domino was serviceable to me. So they added one more branch, and that's a new. There could be another use case of KFC coming out with a new item called Cheesa. They are doing a lot of ATL on that, but within Swiggy, we didn't have that inventory yet till around 2 years back, right? So now we have created that space for them to highlight what is new for them. The same thing when I look at it from a consumer's point of view, right? There are various kinds of consumers. One who is very sure of what I want to eat, right? He'll open the app, directly go to search, place an order, go, right? Correct. He knows what he wants to eat. Then there are kinds of consumers who have a rough idea of what they want to eat. Let's say they have a choice within a cuisine, but they don't know which restaurant, what item, right? So they'll explore a bit. We have sections for them. There's a section which will take them to a popular curation, right? Let's say biryani being a curation, right? There are sections for consumers who are the third kind who don't even know which cuisine they want to try from, right? So for them, the whole app is open. They'll just keep exploring, and they will now see these restaurants who are new, and we have given this position to new restaurants. So it's not like I'm putting it in front of the face of the consumer that this restaurant has paid me money, so I'll make sure that you see them. It's like, I know if your journey is going to be exploratory, I will take you through the route where you will see brands that are new and you are not in their awareness set and they want to bring you in their awareness set. There could be the second kind where we know that the restaurants exist, but you still don't know where you want to place that order from today. So we'll make you explore some within the cuisines, within the categories. You will find restaurants, brands that you have in your consideration set, but you're still exploring. Right? The third is the search, right? And each journey will have slots for advertising or promotions. So if you talk about a search example, and that's a new product that's about to come up for us. Let's say I know I want to try a pizza. Let's say a La Pino's pizza. I'll try La Pino's pizza. If La Pino's as a brand is running ads, I will show it to them on the top, right? However, if there is a brand which is very similar to La Pino's, and I know that the consumer's intent is still yet to finalize on the brand's exploration, right? I will show him a restaurant which is very similar. So that way, I also have an option to give them options for discovery. So that is how I say that I'm balancing the restaurant viewpoint and the consumer viewpoint. Each could have a different stage or a mode, right? Probably today evening, I know I want to eat a pizza. Tomorrow morning, I'm not sure what I want to eat. So as a consumer, I can switch. And when I switch, I will find the relevant restaurant shown to me on the journey.
Yeah, so that really speaks to both your points in the beginning, right? Where you said you're sitting on a bunch of data where you know your customer intimately. So instead of using it to harm their experience, you're using it to make sure that you're able to preempt their experience and give them the best. And advertising in this space has generically never followed this. It is always about just throwing the ad in your face and saying, do what you may with it. It is not actually following through with people on their journey. It's
right. Just
it's
to add
very
to this
different.
point, I'd recently gone through an article which highlighted the difference between personalization and relevance.
Okay.
So I can do a lot of personalization, right? A Domino's or a like brand can come to me and say that I want to target all the players or the users who are pizza eaters, right? That's personalization. That's still not relevance. So relevance actually takes care of what the consumer also wants. So if the consumer, I see that he's a pizza eater, but he's a very loyal pizza eater for Pizza Hut, I will ideally not want to target that, essentially because I want to make sure that customers' relevance also remains intact.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that will help us retain a good loyal user base. Like we also discussed a few minutes back, if I'm showing something in a space which is not relevant, he'll start dropping off, and that's not something that we want.
Correct. Yeah.
Just
no, it's very interesting. It's like both what you and Kishore said. It's a very interesting play between making sure that you're driving discovery, not ruining the user experience, having certain touch points on what part of this user journey this particular consumer is on, and then being able to both match advertiser expectations and experience and user expectation and experience. Anand, as a consumer, do you even know you're being shown ads on these platforms?
Not always, no, especially with native ads that are so stitched. But it's almost like in the case of both Swiggy and BigBasket, the ad is used to supercharge my experience, whether that is relevance or whether that is product listings or sponsored listings or related products, right? Whereas outside of this industry, if you look at OTT or publishing, it's almost like the ad is a form of punishment. You have not subscribed, so you will see an ad.
You will, exactly.
You will see it. You're playing a game. You have just died. So if you watch this ad, then you can come back to life. It's the fabric, the relationship with the ad is so different. Right here, it's at the same time supercharging my experience, creating discovery, giving a new merchant a chance to compete on the same footing with the levers of the world. And all at the same time, not really showing me an ad. And I've always believed that there is a time and place for advertising at any point in time, but if you sort of step outside that line, that's when it starts to become jarring, right? Like my most favorite example is when we watch cricket. In between overs, we are so used to seeing an ad. In fact, when we don't see an ad, we wonder something must have gone wrong. Why am I seeing the bowler walk back?
Exactly. Why are they panning the audience so much?
You're so used to seeing an ad. And for me, that the fact that the ads experience is very normal at that point. And most people hate ads when it's sort of out of the ordinary, right? I'm reading a news article and there are many news websites even in India where an ad will show up and when you click it, it's gone back to the top of the article. That's the kind of stuff that ruins our relationship with ads. Whereas in both the Swiggy and BigBasket examples, what Kishore and Anurodh were talking about was, for me, it's supercharging my experience. When done with care, it can give me the option to discover something, or like Anurodh said, if I've come knowing exactly what I want, boom, 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 I get out of there. These are platforms that allow that to happen as well, which happens. There are times when I know exactly what I want. I've sort of, on my way home, I've dreamed about the pizza. I know the toppings. I know everything I want. I just ordered it. Kavita once laughed at me because I ordered one scoop of ice cream, right?
Anand, this is a strange man.
But if you remember, Swiggy had an ad where there's this guy who ordered one gulab jamun, right? And he stood outside his house and ate it. So that's me. That's me sometimes. But there are times where we endlessly spend an hour trying to discover something and don't order anything. I open the fridge and eat the leftovers that are still there. But I like the fact that it's
scrolling just makes me full. Yeah, just scrolling down makes me full completely. Right.
Yeah.
Kishore, I have the next. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt the flow.
No, go.
But if you are exploring something and you're not finding something, there is a new feature on Swiggy that says you don't know what to eat. Try this. Try that. It will give you options which are very customized to what
I didn't know this.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
it's a
It's more like,
mood-based recommendation. So
Anand, it's
if
more
your
like
mood is
Netflix
to,
also. It's more like
sorry.
Netflix also offers that as to if you don't know what you want to see, it gives you
Yeah,
options
yeah, yeah.
to
Like
Surprise me.
Netflix.
check
Surprise
like
me.
Netflix. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yes, that, but it has a lot of customer history, journey or understanding built in. So it will
Yeah.
give you
Yeah.
something that understands your mood and then gives you recommendations.
Yeah. No, it
Interesting.
makes Kavita and I went to this restaurant called O Pedro in Mumbai a couple of weeks ago, and we didn't know what to order, so we just told the waiter, "You get us whatever you want, we'll eat it," and it worked out. It was great.
Yeah. They organize the entire. Yeah, sometimes you don't want to think about what you want to eat, right? But you want to eat something. The worst is, kya banaye khane mein or kya khaye. You're like, oh, I don't know. And the other thing I like about BigBasket is that you can just copy your previous list and say, just order the same thing again, man. How is
Yeah.
my household going to change 1 month later?
Yeah, smart basket.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just to add into the point that Anurodh also was mentioning, there are two other things that we do for emerging companies, right? One of them is we have a discovery zone on the homepage itself, wherein if you click on the banner, you will end up seeing all the new companies that have been listed in the last 1 to 2 months. That's something that we do. The other one that we do is that for new launch in the case of a larger brand or a mid-size or small brand or a new launch as a company, if they want to be handled, if they want to maneuver the platform and scale, we have a program to support them to help them scale on the platform, right? To see how should we build awareness, consideration over a period of time, do sampling and so on. So there are multiple things that we do.
Yeah.
And this is a
No,
great
there's also
segue.
there's a sense of pride also. If I discover a new brand and then my friends or my wife enjoy it, I take credit. I think as if I've invented that brand.
Yeah, that's true. But Kishore, to your point, right, that you made earlier, which is, you have a program to launch brands, etc. And this is also, in relation to your days at ITC, as in an FMCG company, as a brand manager, modern trade is a big part of your life. And you were talking about this earlier as well. There's a lot of emulation of how you advertise to a person shopping on BigBasket or online, in comparison to what they would do in a modern trade store. You have everything from shelf strips to wobblers to point of sale and what's on the floor and aisle branding and all of that, right? So my question here is as of today, is for a brand manager, managing retail media budgets has become a big deal, right? It has to. I'm assuming that it has definitely changed the entire media mix for this person. Can you shed some light as to how a brand manager today interacts with with BigBasket? You just spoke about launching and stuff like that. Do they have separate budgets? Do they have agencies involved? Do you have annual budgets with them? How does it work? Like, what are the mechanics of all of this advertising with y'all?
So again, retailers are very clear, right? For say established brands, their objectives are different. For new launches, it's different, and they have different plans for say a big event, like the way you were mentioning about a Prime big day event or something on a big sale on a BigBasket and other platforms. Primarily for the regular assets on the platform, say for say a search sponsored ad or a banner or so on and so forth. Typically, the key accounts team that engages with the retailer has a specific budget, ad spend as a percentage of sale, and they play around with that budget for all this regular campaigns, business as usual campaigns, and even the larger campaigns, right? But the budget for new launch is different, right? A new launch is happening from a brand, established brand, or from a new brand. They have specific budgets out of the usual spends, and they would go ahead and allocate. Again, over there, they would take calls based on how much inventory lift are we guaranteeing during the first 3 months of launch and so on. So, because they're also looking for returns. But if you look at it in a broad way, the key accounts team typically look at immediate short term. Am I getting the returns ROAS perspective? They are not as involved in terms of say awareness recall as a brand manager would be involved. Key accounts team works very differently with short term advertising. Brand manager is always a mid and long term oriented. So over there, they're willing to spend monies on say reporting, on consumer surveys, on specific brand engagement campaigns, external campaigns on, say, social media, say on the open internet through a DSP partnership, and so on and so forth. There, the money's come in from a different kitty where they're willing to look at conversations on creating impressions, building recall, and so on and so forth. Whereas the key accounts team, business as usual, existing budgets, they try and maximize it, focusing on ROAS. My personal take is that, not just that I'm speaking from a retailer's point of view. Primarily, brands should not just look at ROAS. It's very, very myopic, being short-sighted, because there are a lot of campaigns, Anurodh, Kavita, and Anand, wherein we have seen the campaign would have immediately given a ROAS of whatever 1.5 to 2.5x. Try to look at the lifetime value, right? Once you have acquired these customers, how many new customers did you acquire through these campaigns? Post that, what was the lifetime value over the next 6 months, 12 months is something that we can measure and tell the brands. I think there you will have to look, the ROAS would be significantly higher, a multiple there, right? I think brands should look at long term rather than just 1 month sale in the follow-on months.
Yeah.
Anurodh, key accounts, I just look at it. Sorry, Kavita, please.
Yeah. No, sorry. But Anurodh, is that something that y'all also face with your national brands and things like that? Because I'm sure Swiggy is a huge marketing vehicle for them as well, right?
Right. So similar to what Kishore also said, there will be some brands who have a fixed budget. There will be some who have a percentage investment lock-in in their heads, right? And we also face a similar problem where we have to sort of make them understand the importance of long-term returns of the campaign that you're running today. It's not just that, and again, we use the same lever. What stage of your brand are you in? Similarly, what kind of customers do you want to target? So if you actually insist on saying that no, ROAS and transactional ROAS is what I want to look at, we understand probably that's a brand that everyone knows and all of the consumers are aware of, have it in their consideration set. So they should then start focusing on performance marketing, which is more real time, right? However, if there is a new brand launch, we definitely can't take that route, and we'll have to go to a longer return LTV view and explain to them how it works for them in the long run. So I don't think we are a lot different in this aspect from what Kishore said or what BigBasket does. That's the same for us as well. Even the
what about agency involvement for the big brands? Because most big brands have their wallets managed by agencies, right? Is that something that both of you all interact with, or you go directly to brands?
Directly to brands mostly. They would keep a budget separately for Swiggy, Zomato, and then give the rest for social media marketing, which is managed by agencies in most of the cases.
Right.
Yeah. So Kavita, in our case, it's similar, like Anurodh was mentioning. For years together, we were handling all the assets on the platform through a managed service where we used to directly interact with brands, with agencies not playing a role. Once we launch the self-serve ads engine, the moment self-serve comes into picture, again, agencies get involved because companies would ideally want to outsource that to a team that handles it, optimizes the campaign, and so on and so forth. But significant part of the business is directly dealt with brands, with a very small portion coming to through self-serve. The company is directly involved in terms of all conversations, even to do with self-serve. Just that primarily agency plays a key role in terms of configuring the campaigns and optimizing the campaigns. And over a period of time, once we transition all of these assets to self-serve, whatever is allowed by the organization, I think agencies will play a vital role.
Right. Yeah. Because if you're optimizing campaigns, then you get more familiar with budgeting, and then you know exactly how you can play with that money better, right? But from what I understand, both Anurodh and for Kishore, you're saying that you have a direct relationship for budgets with an advertiser. Operationalizing it could be through an agency, could be through a managed service, etc. And then it's more of a key accounts team effort along with the advertiser in a direct line, right?
Just to add it, over a period of time, once we build this relationship with agencies will play a key role in terms of how do we make this partnership win? Do we bring in additional funds from the brands? Because they have the ability of scale, ability to convince brands for additional monies for specific needs, be it existing brands or new launch. That's something that we are looking at. How do we partner with agencies over a longer period of time?
Right. So we know when Google AdWords came to India like 20 years ago, there were a lot of companies who were like learning how to do AdWords, and everybody was like, it's never going to work. You had banks giving you coupons to go and spend on AdWords and stuff because Google had tied up with various types of banks and things like that. Are you guys doing anything to encourage the agency ecosystem to start participating in your growth? Is that something that you're actively doing? I know, Kishore, you said that you just touched upon a little bit before this, but are there any specific things that you want to do in terms of education or in terms of partnerships that you're looking at, that you're taking small steps or large steps on in the next couple of quarters? Either one of you all?
So nothing that we are taking as of now, because it's just 6 months of having established the ads engine also, where we have started working closely with the agencies. We will look into that at a later stage once the system stabilizes.
Right.
For the time being, we're not looking at anything. We want to work very closely with them. We want to interact with them quite frequently. We have quarterly business reviews right now to see how's it performing, but nothing beyond that for the time being.
For the time being. Anurodh, what about Swiggy? Do agencies even come into play, given that you said that you have social media budgets set aside? I'm wondering, what are these agencies that actually get the other part of the budget? And therefore, you were saying something, Anurodh, about keywords and promotions.
Right. So no, I understand where you're also coming from. So if you talk about the agency aspect of things, right? And I'm hoping the audio is much better now. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
So if we talk about the social media investments, right? I know that there are two models. If it's a big, medium to big size brand, they'll either have a social media marketing manager within their organization who will do this for Facebook, Instagram, etc. Or they will give it to some other agency who actually do it for all the clients, right? So these are the two models that work. So if we talk about whether we have tried it or not, we actually keep exploring a route to extract that budget as well and do it ourselves. But that will again go on Google and Facebook and Instagram. The key difference why a brand would have a dissonance while doing it with Swiggy and Zomato is we are transaction based or a heavy intent consumer journey, right? If a consumer is opening Swiggy or Zomato, it means that he's ready to place an order. He's looking to place an order, right? Either a food or Instamart. Right? Whereas if we go on a real journey on a Instagram, it could be that he's targeting someone who's a foodie, but he may not be in the mood, right? It could be a reel or a post shown to him at 2 a.m. that may not have a very transactional response. Right? So what happens because of this difference essentially is we are able to give them a ROI or a ROAS of 3, 4, and 7 to some, right? That may not happen on social media marketing. That would be essentially 1/14th, 1/20th of what this is. So this dissonance will exist. So it essentially means that I'll have to go and talk to a different person in the same organization and get this budget from them. It'll have a very different conversion. So it's not like we are not exploring that or not thinking about that. It's not there in the short-term roadmap. Now on the keyword-based ads bit, right? That definitely has a lot of potential, and we keep exploring things with a lot of tech companies who have done it with other players of the world. And we also done something in-house where we understand based on the keyword what is the relevant result, because our search is all keyword-based search, right? So how do we start monetizing it with a very strong DS backing is something that is an active stream. But again, not through the agencies, directly for Swiggy's platform.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting because we don't hear much. We hear a lot about retail media, but we don't hear about retail media from an agency perspective, right? Because it's still very, it's all very ensconced within the e-commerce player in itself, which brings me to my next question. So both Swiggy, BigBasket, everybody right now is born in the cloud, digital natives. You all have enough engineering talent. You can dream it, you can do it kind of situation. And so there is always this fight between external vendors trying to come into the organization and the organization being able to accept that. And I feel like having spoken to a lot of the e-commerce platforms over the last maybe quarter or prior to that, it seems like the stronghold of I want to build everything is kind of coming to you're kind of relaxing it, saying, okay, I know I built all that I have to. Now I'm okay to look outside, but I want specific things. Is that mood is that mood actually changing within the organizations? Is the build versus buy thing not for your core stuff, but more for the monetization aspect of it? Is there curiosity that's bubbling in the ranks for you guys in BigBasket and Swiggy? Do you see that happening?
I do see that happening, and it's not because of some change on the principal fronts. It's because I want to be more agile to market. I don't want to wait out to keep building every new thing, and I don't even know whether it'll work as I expect it to be, right? So I would rather want to try it out, and if there is something available in the market, I would ideally want to get to market quicker.
Right.
Because the way market has changed after the COVID era, it's not like I want to do everything with 100% perfection. I'm good with a 90% perfection, but quicker to market. That would be more critical for me.
Yeah. What about you, Kishore?
Similar here. So, for example, we had a discussion when we were going for the self-serve ads engine, right? We were debating about whether to build it or go to market quickly. I think we went in for someone who is an established player and went and finished off integration in 6 months. Otherwise, you would have taken a couple of years to build this, right? I think it's an easy call to make, and I think businesses are making these calls sooner, realizing that it will not help them in the long run, right? They will lose out to competition, to customers, and such.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting to note. Anand, do you have anything to say on the build versus buy, third-party apps being used?
No, I think both Kishore and Anurodh hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, it's going to boil down to speed. Even though media in general and retailers are slowly going through their own identity crisis about whether you're a retail company or you're a tech company, I don't think there is a single technology company on the planet that does not have a bandwidth problem, which means at some point you're going to have to decide if you're willing to wait or if you're willing to pay for that speed. And I think that's what's creating an ecosystem of vertical specific technology companies like us, like the self-serve platforms you guys were talking about. But I think the bottom line is going to be speed at the end of the day. You get somewhere faster. It's also, like Kishore mentioned a few times at the start of our conversation, it's such a competitive market that if you don't go down a certain technology route because you're waiting to build it and your competitor just bought it from the market, you could lose out. And that, I guess, at the end of the day, that's what drives everything.
But I also think that it's a very precarious decision for companies like yours because of the established do no harm thing, right? Where you want to make sure that you don't compromise on user experience, you don't compromise on user data. You still you have to maintain a competitive edge, and you need to make sure that your sellers are not compromised either. To be able to manage that requires you to make careful choices, which is why I guess I think it's stringent. It's not easy to get into these organizations as well because they know what they want and they know what they don't want, more importantly, right? So it becomes this pull and push of getting something on board for the sake of addressing competition and making sure it really fits within the way your organization runs, which is instead of making your organization fit into what that particular SaaS product is or supplier of any particular tech is giving you. I have my last question now. We're down to the hour. I'm going to go around the room to ask you guys what do you think is what are the future trends that you see happening in India over the next maybe short term, mid-term, long term in this e-commerce space, specifically to monetization? What do you think is going to happen from your perspective? Do you think that anything new is going to come up? From whatever we spoke about, we can start with you, Kishore.
In terms of trends, I look at automation to be one of the significant trends that's here to establish it really well. It's going to play a significant role, especially with machine learning and so on and so forth. In terms of AI, I see more of a human and AI collaboration, more than it replacing humans for most of the jobs. I think we will have right people to handle AI, which will help us increase productivity. Again, in terms of technology or even in terms of AI and all automation and everything happening, when it comes to consumers, I think privacy is something that is there that everyone needs to take care in the future as well. A lot of tougher regulations are expected to be there. That's something that we need to take care when we see trends in the business scaling in e-commerce and so on and so forth. right to use customer data, but how do we protect the data is something that we need to, all players need to work on. These are the few thoughts that I have.
Yeah. What about you, Anurodh?
So the way I see it is, let's say we talk about 2014 when the restaurant industry was not aware of how a order will be placed or delivered online, right? From there till today, everyone understands every aspect of online food delivery industry, which means the education part of the restaurant industry has been done by these two companies put together and a lot of others who had come and gone. At the same time, now they also understand what is the importance of this ad. Other than the NAD players, right? Other than the national players, if we talk about the restaurant industry, the tail is huge. There are a lot of very small restaurant players who did not have the know-how of how to deliver an order online, but now they understand it because of these two big players present today in India, right? I see it growing tremendously in the next 3 to 5 years to come, right? Both from the overall investment point of view, also from their understanding of how ads functions, and hence their portfolio being diversified across the different products that we have. Currently, if you look within these two players and the industry, most of the investment is still on performance marketing, right? The display marketing, the brand awareness, etc., is still not that big, right? I see that taking up a lot of shape in the next 2 to 3 years, along with what Kishore said. Automation will give a lot of control to these small players, vendors, retailers to choose how, when, and where to spend, right? Self-serve is that route that we have also started journey on, and that is expected to grow like anything, right? The way we see Amazon has grown in the last few years. In fact, Amazon, Flipkart put together did some 1.x billion dollars in just last year, right? So I don't see that to stop in the next few years. If you look at the overall industry also within India and outside India, it's going to be a huge industry, just the advertising industry. And you'll see shifting of budgets from offline to online. I was really impressed to understand how Kishore said they take analogy of offline consumer's journey and then try to replicate it on the online. Very soon we would have sort of turn the tables around, and probably the offline players who are new will start taking inspiration from what we do online, and then they start placing ads within their offline system as well. So I'm looking forward to that day.
Yeah. What about you, Anand? What's your outlook for the near, mid, and long term, especially with retail media?
I'll put down two perspectives. I think as a consumer, it is only exciting and looking up, because somehow the industry seems to have figured out how to predict what we want and give it to us. I remember when quick commerce and delivery came around, not many people bought into it, and I think there's an extreme version of it that still hasn't taken off. But I've gotten used to waking up, having my cook at home come over and picking the one ingredient that we don't have and saying, yeah, don't worry, you start cooking. By the time you get there, it'll be here, right? And I do this almost, it's an embarrassing admission, but we do this almost every morning in my house.
Yeah, I actually shop every morning. I'm like, okay, what are we making today? And then probably shop for my ingredients right then and there.
I know where the Instamart warehouse is near my house, so I'm also aware of exactly how long it's going to take before it gets to my house. So I think from a consumer standpoint, the ability to predict and just give us that better experience is always going to be there. I think from the other end, when it comes to advertisers, the rise of retail media networks, I think, is going to be huge for two reasons. One is, like Kishore said, I think the more data you feed the beast, the more they're going to want it. The more you tell them about consumer behavior and consumer data and SKU availability, the better they're able to drive performance. And in time, I think they'll all start to look at LTV over just short-term ROAS. But they're also going to not want to interact with so many self-serve platforms every single time they want to do it. So there's going to be some unification through retail media networks. But I think the quantum of spend is definitely going to go up, also in relation to other parts of the mix where data is not so freely available. I think with retail media, ROAS is a lot more definitive in terms of the ability to measure that and attribution, whereas there are parts of the mix where there are proxies and at some point you really don't know what's going on. So I definitely see the relationship between data, privacy, and spend as something that's going to start to go up on the buy side.
Yeah, I think with food, there's definitely experiential that can come about where I'm actually able to see what I'm going to get more in depth. Right now, you have beautiful pictures up on Swiggy with gourmet stores and stuff like that, which is a step up from what it used to be. I'm sure that they'll have little more immersive ways of doing it. I'm 100% sure Swiggy will do some offline thing or the other, or any of your food guys will start doing something offline, so that you're able to encourage people, people's tastes. From an online from a retail media perspective, one of the things that I'm curious to know how everybody will pull it off, because it requires an industry-wide change, right? One is obviously making sure that you're towing the line on PDPA, which is your Personal Data Protection Act, making sure you're still giving the ability for scale and the network to be able to target the right person, the right time, in the right part of the user journey. And especially for a company like BigBasket and others who actually handle supply, for that impression to carry the SKU and the stock in, stock out, right? To make sure that I'm able to show somebody that buy this and actually have it available when they check out, because you're in a high intent audience space. But overall, very exciting, because everybody's been looking for that one aspect of advertising, which is bottom of the funnel, right? Where you have high intent advertising. And both Swiggy and BigBasket are on that same spectrum, where I'm really hungry and I want to eat something, right? Or I've run out of something and I want something instantly. Or I want to go to a grocer and make sure I get everything in one place, or even with BigBasket Instant as well. So there's the customer choice, like you were saying, we are spoiled for choice. We are spoiled in general. I can throw a party today for 40 people and not blink an eye, because I know I can just order in, and I can order in from any place. It doesn't matter. Or I can cook up a storm because I have BigBasket. But I think overall, we're here for the retail media party, right? And I think both of you have been very generous with your insights, as well as your sharing of your knowledge. And I'm sure that people who have listened are walking away from here better informed. And I thank you both for making the time on this Friday morning. Lena says we have questions. Do we? I can't see these questions.
We have two questions. Do we have about 3 or 4 minutes to take these questions, Anurodh and Kishore?
Yeah, they're just two questions.
Yeah.
One is, with ONDC coming into play, what are the changes we can expect in the ecosystems? Where do platforms find middle grounds? Anybody want to take that question?
Take is that ONDC, I think it's a great platform to be in. For the time being, either us or the other platforms that we talk to, we're not seeing as much traction as we would expect it to. But if done the right way, like an UPI ecosystem and so on and so forth, I think it's a great concept right now. But yes, it's yet to be seen on the ground. So just a matter of time. We'll have to be patient. I think UPI took years to scale up the way it is. Let's give it sufficient time. Then we are hoping that this ecosystem works really well for Swiggy, BigBasket, and all other players. That's my take. Anand, over to you.
I think very similar opinion here as well. It's a great concept, but still in the concept stage. So we're just waiting for it to shape up and then take a call accordingly.
Nice. The other question is about 1P versus 3P ads. Now, this is always confusing because people think it's first-party advertising from an audience perspective, but this is very retail speak, right? First-party being seller and third-party being a non-endemic brand. And I think this is something that one of you all touched upon, saying non-endemic brands in a user journey is something that you all are careful about. What is your take on allowing non-endemic brands in the future for the industry at large, not maybe for Swiggy and for BigBasket, for them to participate in addressing these audiences that are there?
Sure. So I'll take it. I think Kishore covered it earlier as well. Not within the consumer journey, but beyond the consumer journey, we actually keep encouraging non-endemic brands as well to come and get the required impressions. So if you talk about Swiggy, the post-order screen is full of a lot of non-endemic brands showcasing their products, talking about their brands on that page. Because essentially, when I know that a consumer has opened Swiggy to place an order on food, I just don't want his consumer journey to get distracted. Otherwise, it will become like what Anand was talking about. I will give you one more life in the game, but you'll have to watch this video first. That doesn't
Yeah.
really gel well with
Yeah.
the consumer journey here.
That's true. That's true. You're doing harm in the process.
No,
Yeah.
just to
Well
summarize
said.
it, we are primarily in the grocery business. We also do ads. That's all. We are not into ads business doing grocery, right?
Exactly.
Correct.
So
Correct.
yes, we want to do this, maximize profitability, take care of the interests of the brands and the consumers. That's the whole.
Yeah. Well
Well
said.
said.
Well
Yeah.
said. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for making time this Friday and everybody else who attended this live. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye, Anurodh. Bye, Kavita.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Anand.
See you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.